The sun was setting, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink. People were rushing home after a long day at work, eager to unwind. Among them was a man in his mid-30s, walking briskly down the street. He wasn't anyone famous, just an ordinary guy trying to make ends meet. His clothes were simple but clean, and he carried himself with a quiet confidence that came from years of hard work and resilience. As he passed by a small park on the corner of the block, something caught his attention. A little girl, no older than 8, stood alone near a bench. Her curly hair framed her face, which was streaked with tears. She clutched a tiny backpack so tightly that her knuckles had turned white. It was clear she was scared, lost, and unsure of what to do next. The man slowed down his pace and approached her cautiously. Kneeling to her level, he spoke softly. "Hey there, sweetheart, are you okay? Is someone here with you?" The girl looked up, startled for a moment, but then seemed to relax when she saw the kindness in his eyes. Sniffling, she shook her head. I can't find my daddy," she said, her voice trembling. He nodded gently, not wanting to overwhelm her with too many questions right away. "Okay, don't worry. We'll figure this out together. What's your name?" "Lily," she whispered, wiping her nose with the back of her hand. "Well, Lily, my name is... Well, you can just call me a friend who wants to help you. Do you remember where you last saw your dad?" She thought for a moment before answering. "At the train station. We were going somewhere, but it got really crowded and I couldn't see him anymore." The man sighed, realizing how chaotic train stations could get during rush hour. This wasn't going to be easy, but he couldn't leave her alone either. "Not like this." "All right, Lily," he said firmly but kindly. "Here's what we're going to do. First, let's sit down for a minute so you can catch your breath. Then we'll try to figure out how to find your dad, okay?" She nodded, looking slightly more hopeful. Together, they walked over to a nearby bench. As they sat down, the man noticed how tired she looked. Her small hands fidgeted with the straps of her backpack, and her eyes darted around nervously, as if expecting her father to appear out of nowhere. "Do you have a phone or anything we can use to call your dad?" he asked gently. Lily shook her head again. "No. He has his phone, but I don't know the number." "That's all right," he reassured her. "We'll think of something else. Does your dad work close by? Or do you know where he might be heading?" For a moment, she hesitated, thinking hard. Finally, she said, "He works in a big building downtown, that's all I know." It wasn't much to go on, but it was a start. The man smiled warmly at her, doing his best to keep her spirits up. "That's good information, Lily. Big buildings are easier to find than people sometimes. Let's grab some water and snacks first. You must be hungry, and then we'll head downtown together, okay?" Her lips curved into the faintest hint of a smile. For the first time since they met, she seemed to trust him completely. They stopped by a nearby convenience store where he bought her a bottle of water and a granola bar. Watching her eat, he couldn't help but feel a pang of sadness mixed with determination. No child should ever feel this scared or alone. Whatever it took, he vowed silently, he would get her back to her father safely. As they stepped back onto the street, ready to begin their search, neither of them knew just how far this journey would take them, or how much it would change both their lives forever. The man and Lily stepped out of the convenience store, the cool evening air brushing against their faces. The streets were quieter now, with only a few people lingering around. Holding her small hand firmly yet gently, he guided her toward the direction of downtown. His mind raced with thoughts. How would they find her father in such a vast city? But one thing was certain. Giving up wasn't an option. "All right, Lily," he said, his tone steady but warm. "You told me your dad works in a big building, downtown. Do you remember anything else about it? Any special signs or colors?" Lily tilted her head, thinking hard. After a moment, she replied, "There's something, I think there's a big sign outside. It says Kingston or something like that." His eyebrows shot up at the mention of the name. Kingston Enterprises. It was one of the biggest companies in the city. He had seen their towering skyscraper countless times while commuting to work. If that was where her father worked, then they had a lead. Still, finding him wouldn't be easy. The building was massive, filled with hundreds, maybe even thousands of employees. But first things first, they needed to get there. "Okay, Lily," he said, smiling encouragingly. "That's great information. Let's go check it out. We'll take the bus downtown, all right?" She nodded, clutching her backpack tightly as they headed toward the nearest bus stop. Along the way, he kept the conversation light, asking her simple questions to distract her from the fear that still lingered in her eyes. "What kind of games do you like to play?" he asked casually. Her face lit up for a brief second. "I love drawing. And sometimes I play hide and seek with my friends." "That sounds fun," he chuckled. "Do you have any favorite animals you like to draw?" "Cats," she exclaimed, her voice brightening. "I draw cats all the time. My daddy says I'm really good at it." Hearing her talk about her father made him smile, but it also reminded him why they were here. Her dad was somewhere out there, probably frantic with worry, searching for his little girl. They had to move fast. When they reached the bus stop, they waited patiently under the dim glow of a street lamp. The man glanced down at Lily, noticing how tired she looked. Her earlier burst of energy had faded, replaced by exhaustion. He knelt beside her, adjusting his jacket to drape it over her shoulders. "You're doing amazing, kiddo," he said softly. "We're going to find your dad soon. I promise." She leaned into him slightly, seeking comfort. For a moment he felt a wave of protectiveness wash over him. This little girl, so brave yet so vulnerable, trusted him completely. He couldn't let her down. Finally, the bus arrived, its headlights cutting through the darkness. They climbed aboard, and he paid for their fare. As they settled into a seat near the window, Lily rested her head against his arm, her eyelids growing heavy. Watching her drift off to sleep tugged at his heartstrings. She was just a child, caught in a situation no kid should ever have to face. The ride downtown gave him time to think. What if her father wasn't at the office anymore? What if they got there and hit a dead end? He pushed those doubts aside, focusing instead on what they could control right now. One step at a time, that was all they could do. When they arrived at their destination, he gently woke Lily. "Hey, sleepyhead, we're here. Ready to keep going?" She rubbed her eyes groggily but nodded. Together, they stepped off the bus and gazed up at the towering skyscraper ahead. Its glass walls shimmered under the city lights, reflecting the night sky. At the entrance stood a sleek sign that read Kingston Enterprises in bold letters. "This is it," he murmured, more to himself than to her. Turning to Lily, he added, "Let's see if we can find someone inside who can help us." Hand in hand, they approached the building. A security guard stationed at the door eyed them curiously. Before either of them could say anything, the guard held up a hand. "Sorry, folks, no visitors allowed after hours." The man hesitated, unsure of how to proceed. He didn't want to cause trouble, but this was important. Taking a deep breath, he explained the situation calmly. "Sir, please listen. This little girl has been separated from her father. We believe he works here. Can we speak to someone who might be able to help?" The guard studied them for a moment, his expression softening when he saw Lily's tear-streaked face. Finally, he sighed and nodded. "All right, come inside, I'll see what I can do." Relieved, the man led Lily into the lobby. The space was grand, with polished floors and high ceilings. Despite the elegance, he couldn't shake the feeling of being out of place. People like him rarely set foot in buildings like this. But none of that mattered now. All that mattered was getting Lily back to her dad. As they waited, seated in the corner of the expansive lobby, he noticed Lily fidgeting nervously. To distract her, he pulled out a pen and a crumpled receipt from his pocket. "Here," he said, handing them to her. "Why don't you draw something while we wait? Maybe a cat?" Her lips curled into a shy smile as she began sketching. Watching, her focus intently on the paper, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. No matter what obstacles lay ahead, he was determined to see this through, for her sake. Minutes ticked by, each one feeling like an eternity. Then, finally, a woman wearing a professional suit emerged from behind a set of double doors. She introduced herself as part of the administrative team and listened intently as the man recounted their story. I'll need to confirm some details, she said, glancing at Lily. But I'll do my best to locate her father. He thanked her profusely, grateful for her willingness to help. As they waited further, he couldn't help but wonder what awaited them next. Little did he know, the outcome of their search would change everything, not just for Lily and her father, but for him too. The woman in the professional suit led them through a set of double doors, her heels clicking softly against the polished floor. The man followed closely behind, his hand resting lightly on Lily's shoulder to keep her close. They entered a spacious conference room with large windows that overlooked the glittering cityscape below. Despite the breathtaking view, the atmosphere felt heavy with anticipation. "Please have a seat," the woman said, gesturing toward the sleek chairs around the table. "I'll need a few more details to narrow down our search." The man nodded and guided Lily into one of the chairs. She clutched her backpack like it was a lifeline, her eyes darting nervously around the unfamiliar space. He gave her a reassuring pat on the back before turning his attention to the woman. "We don't have much to go on," he admitted honestly. "She mentioned her dad works here at Kingston Enterprises, but beyond that..." He glanced at Lily. "Do you remember anything else about your father? Like what he does here or what he looks like?" Lily thought for a moment, her brow furrowed. In concentration. "He has dark hair and he wears glasses sometimes, and he always carries this black folder with papers inside." "That's helpful," the woman said, jotting down notes on a tablet. "We'll check the employee directory and see if we can match these details." While they waited, the man tried to keep Lily engaged. He noticed she had stopped drawing and was now staring blankly at the table, her earlier spark fading. "Hey," he said softly, leaning closer. "You're doing great, okay? We're going to find him soon." She looked up at him, her big eyes filled with a mix of hope and exhaustion. "Do you really think so?" "I know so," he replied firmly, offering her a warm smile. "Your dad's probably out there right now, looking for you too. And when we find him, you'll be able to tell him all about how brave you were today." Her lips curved into the faintest hint of a smile, and for a moment she seemed to relax. The minutes dragged on, each tick of the clock echoing louder than the last. The man found himself fidgeting in his seat, glancing occasionally at the door, waiting for someone, anyone, to walk in with answers. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the woman returned, accompanied by another staff member holding a clipboard. "We've narrowed it down to a few possibilities," the woman explained. "But we'll need confirmation from someone higher up. I've contacted Mr. Kingston himself. He's still in the building and he'll be joining us shortly." At the mention of the name, the man froze. Mr. Kingston, as in the CEO of Kingston Enterprises, the same man whose face appeared on billboards and magazine covers, known for his sharp business acumen and philanthropic efforts. Suddenly the weight of where they were, and who they might be dealing with, hit him full force. Before he could dwell on it too much, the door opened again. A tall, well-dressed man walked in, his presence commanding yet calm. His dark hair was neatly styled, and his glasses perched on the bridge of his nose just as Lily had described. For a split second, no one spoke. Then Lily gasped, her eyes widening in recognition. "Daddy!" she cried, jumping out of her chair and running toward him. The man, the CEO, dropped to his knees, opening his arms wide as Lily crashed into him. Tears streamed down both their faces as they hugged tightly, neither willing to let go. Watching the reunion unfold, the man who had brought Lily here felt a lump rise in his throat. It was a moment of pure relief, love, and gratitude, one that reminded him why he had chosen to help in the first place. After a long embrace, the CEO finally stood, keeping one arm protectively around Lily. Turning to the man who had reunited him with his daughter, he extended his hand. "Thank you," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I can't even begin to express how grateful I am for what you've done." The man shook his head modestly, feeling awkward under the spotlight. "It's nothing really, anyone would have done the same." "No," the CEO insisted, his tone firm but kind. "Not everyone would have gone this far. You didn't know us, yet you took time out of your day to bring my daughter back to me. That's extraordinary." For a moment, words failed him. He simply shrugged, unsure of how to respond. The CEO, however, wasn't done expressing his gratitude. "I want to repay you somehow," he continued. "Is there anything I can do? Money? A job offer? Anything at all?" The man hesitated, taken aback by the unexpected generosity. Truthfully, he didn't need, or expect, a reward. Helping Lily had been its own reward. Still, he couldn't deny the sincerity in the CEO's voice. "You don't owe me anything," he said finally. "Just knowing she's safe is enough for me." The CEO studied him for a moment, clearly impressed by his humility. Then, a thoughtful expression crossed his face. "Well, regardless of what you say now, I'd like to stay in touch. If there's ever anything you need, whether it's personal or professional, you have my word that I'll do whatever I can to help." The man nodded, appreciating the gesture but not fully grasping the significance of the offer. At that moment, all he cared about was seeing the joy on Lily's face as she clung to her father, safe and sound. As they prepared to leave the conference room, the CEO insisted on walking them out personally. On their way to the exit, Lily tugged on her father's sleeve and pointed at the man who had helped her. "He was super nice to me, Daddy," she said earnestly. "He bought me snacks and told me stories and made sure I wasn't scared." The CEO smiled warmly, giving the man another appreciative look. "It seems I owe you more than I realized," he said. "Take care of yourself and please don't hesitate to reach out if you ever need anything." With that, they parted ways. As the man stepped outside into the cool night air, he felt a strange mix of emotions, relief, pride, and a lingering sense of wonder. He had started the evening as just another person heading home after work, but now he was leaving with a story he'd never forget. Little did he know, this was only the beginning. The man walked out of the towering skyscraper, the cool night air wrapping around him like a comforting blanket. His heart was still racing from everything that had just happened, the frantic search, the emotional reunion, and the unexpected encounter with one of the most powerful men in the city. As he made his way down the sidewalk, he couldn't help but replay the events in his mind. Lily's laughter echoed in his thoughts, her tiny voice calling out, "Daddy," as she ran into her father's arms. It was a moment so pure, so full of love, that it left an indelible mark on him. He felt a strange mix of emotions, relief that she was safe, pride in having played a part in reuniting her with her dad, and even a touch of sadness knowing their paths might never cross again. But deep down, he knew what mattered most was that Lily was back where she belonged. As he turned the corner onto a quieter street, his phone buzzed in his pocket. Pulling it out, he saw a text message from his best friend. "Hey, how's it going? Still at work?" He chuckled softly. How could he even begin to explain what had happened tonight? For now, he decided to keep it simple. Typing quickly, he replied, "Had a crazy evening. Tell you about it later." His friend responded, almost instantly, "Crazy good or crazy bad?" The man smiled to himself. Definitely crazy good. But as he slipped the phone back into his pocket, his thoughts drifted back to the CEO. There was something about the man's gratitude that lingered with him. It wasn't just the words he'd said, it was the sincerity behind them. The way he had looked at him as if seeing someone who truly cared stuck with him. Most people in positions of power didn't take the time to notice ordinary folks like him, but this man had gone out of his way to express his thanks, even offering to stay in touch. Still, the man dismissed the idea of ever reaching out. What could he possibly have to offer someone like that? They lived in completely different worlds. A few days passed and life returned to its usual rhythm. He went back to work, clocking long hours and focusing on getting through each day. But every now and then, he'd catch himself thinking about Lily and her father. He wondered how they were doing, whether they'd managed to recover from the scare of being separated. Then one afternoon, as he was heading home from work, his phone rang. The number was unfamiliar, but something nudged him to answer it anyway. "Hello? Hi. Is this, the gentleman who helped my daughter last week?" Came a familiar voice on the other end. It took him a second to recognize it, but when he did, his eyes widened in surprise. "Yes, that's me. How can I help you?" "It's Michael," the voice replied warmly. "We met at Kingston Enterprises. Listen, I've been meaning to call and check in. I wanted to thank you again for everything you did for Lily. And for me. You have no idea how much it meant to us." The man shifted uncomfortably, unsure of what to say. "I'm glad I could help." "Really, it was nothing." "No, it wasn't nothing," Michael insisted. "You showed kindness when it mattered most. And honestly, I haven't stopped thinking about our conversation that night. About your humility and selflessness. It inspired me." "Inspired? You?" the man repeated, confused. "Yes," Michael said. "Look, I know we didn't get much of a chance to talk before, but I'd like to change that. Would you be open to meeting up sometime? Just for coffee or lunch? I'd love to hear more about what you do and maybe find ways we can work together." The man blinked, caught off guard by the invitation. Work together? With someone like Michael? It sounded surreal. I don't know what to say," he admitted after a pause. "Say yes," Michael urged gently. "No pressure, of course. I just think it could be a great opportunity for both of us." After a moment of hesitation, the man agreed. "All right. Sure. Why not?" They settled on a time to meet later that week. When the call ended, the man stared at his phone for a while, trying to process what had just happened. Was this really happening? Was he about to sit down with one of the most influential people in the city over coffee? When the day finally arrived, the man found himself standing outside a cozy cafe downtown. He spotted Michael almost immediately. He was easy to recognize, even without the suit and tie. Dressed casually in jeans and a sweater, he looked approachable and relaxed. "Hey there," Michael greeted him with a warm smile, extending his hand. "Thanks for coming." "Of course," the man replied, shaking his hand. "It's good to see you again." They sat down at a small table, near the window, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee filling the air. At first, the conversation was light, covering topics like Lily's recovery from the ordeal and how grateful she still was for his help. But soon, Michael steered the discussion towards something deeper. "So, tell me about yourself," he said, earnestly. "What drives you? What are your passions?" The man hesitated, unused to being asked such questions by someone in Michael's position. "Well, I guess I care a lot about helping others, especially kids. Growing up, I didn't always have the easiest life, so I try to give back whenever I can. Whether it's mentoring young people or just lending a hand to someone in need, I believe everyone deserves a fair shot." Michael listened intently, nodding along. "That's incredible," he said. "You know, we're actually working on expanding our community outreach programs at Kingston Enterprises. We want to focus on empowering underprivileged youth and giving them opportunities they might not otherwise have. Hearing your story makes me think you'd be perfect for leading some of these initiatives." The man's jaw dropped slightly. "Me? Lead something like that?" "Why not?" Michael countered. "You clearly have the heart for it. And I trust your judgment. You proved that already. If you're interested, we'd provide all the resources and support you need. Think of it as a chance to make an even bigger impact." For a moment, the man was speechless. This was far beyond anything he'd imagined when he stepped into that cafe. But as he thought about it, he realized it wasn't just about him. It was about the countless lives he could touch if he accepted the opportunity. "I'd be honored," he said finally, a smile spreading across his face. Michael grinned back, clearly pleased. "Great, let's get started." As they wrapped up their meeting, the man couldn't shake the feeling that his life had changed forever. Little did he know, this was only the beginning of a journey that would connect him to new people, ideas, and possibilities, all because he chose to help a lost little girl find her way home. The next few weeks flew by in a blur for the man. What started as an ordinary evening, just another day of heading home after work, had turned into something extraordinary. Now he found himself stepping into a world he never imagined he'd be part of, the corporate offices of Kingston Enterprises. But this wasn't about boardroom meetings or fancy suits. It was about making a real difference in people's lives. Michael wasted no time getting things moving. He introduced the man to the team working on the company's community outreach programs and gave him full creative freedom to shape the initiatives however he saw fit. It was overwhelming at first. The man had always been used to doing things on his own terms, with limited resources. Now, here he was, surrounded by professionals who spoke a language of budgets, proposals, and strategic planning. For someone like him, it felt like learning a whole new way of life. But Michael made sure to ease the transition. "Take your time," he said during one of their early check-ins. "This is your space now. You know what needs to be done better than anyone else here. Just tell us how we can support you." Those words stuck with him. Michael wasn't just handing him a title. He was giving him trust, a rare gift in any workplace. And so the man rolled up his sleeves and got to work. He began by reaching out to local schools, youth centers, and community groups, listening to their stories and understanding their struggles. His goal was simple: create programs that would give kids opportunities they might not otherwise have, mentorship, skills training, scholarships, and more. One afternoon, while brainstorming ideas with the team, Lily unexpectedly popped into his mind. She had been the spark that set everything in motion, hadn't she? Thinking about her reminded him why he cared so deeply about helping young people. Every child deserved to feel safe, supported, and loved, just like Lily had when she reunited with her dad. As the weeks went on, the man dove headfirst into his new role. He spent hours researching successful outreach models from other cities, meeting with experts, and even visiting neighborhoods where Kingston Enterprises could make the biggest impact. Slowly but surely, the pieces began falling into place. They launched a pilot program aimed at mentoring underprivileged teens, pairing them with volunteers from the company who could guide them through school, career choices, and personal challenges. The response was overwhelming. Kids who had once felt invisible suddenly had adults cheering them on, believing in their potential. Parents expressed gratitude, sharing how their children were gaining confidence and hope. Even the employees at Kingston Enterprises seemed to thrive under the initiative, finding purpose beyond their usual 9-to-5 routines. Through it all, the man remained grounded. He never lost sight of the fact that none of this would have happened if he hadn't decided to help a scared little girl find her way home. That thought kept him humble and motivated. Meanwhile, Lily and her father stayed in touch too. Michael invited the man over for dinner one weekend, eager to introduce him to his family. When he arrived at their home, he was greeted warmly by Michael and Lily, who ran up to him with a big hug. "You're my hero," she exclaimed, grinning ear to ear. He laughed, ruffling her hair affectionately. "Nah, kiddo. I just pointed you in the right direction. Your dad's the real hero. He's the one who raised such a brave girl." Dinner was filled with laughter and conversation. Michael's wife, a kind and gracious woman, thanked him repeatedly for bringing Lily back safely. Over dessert, Michael shared how much the man's actions had inspired him, not just professionally but personally. "You reminded me of what's truly important," Michael said, leaning forward earnestly. "Success isn't just about numbers or profits, it's about people, about leaving the world a little better than we found it. And honestly, I don't think I'll ever forget that lesson." The man nodded, feeling a lump rise in his throat. He didn't see himself as anything special, but hearing Michael talk like this made him realize the ripple effect of kindness. One small act of compassion had led to so many unexpected blessings, for Lily, for Michael, and even for himself. As the evening wound down, Lily pulled out a drawing she had made especially for him. It was a picture of two stick figures holding hands, standing in front of a tall building labeled Kingston Enterprises. At the bottom, she had written in colorful letters, "Thank you for being my friend." Tears pricked the corners of his eyes as he accepted the drawing. "This is beautiful, Lily. Thank you for trusting me enough to let me help." That night, as he drove home, he couldn't stop thinking about how far they'd all come since that fateful evening. A chance encounter had transformed not only his life but also the lives of countless others. It was proof that sometimes the smallest moments can lead to the biggest changes. And yet deep down he knew this was just the beginning. There was still so much work to be done, so many more lives to touch. But for now, he allowed himself to sit quietly in the glow of gratitude for Lily, for Michael, and for the reminder that kindness, no matter how small, always has the power to change the world. As the weeks turned into months, the man settled into his new role at Kingston Enterprises with a sense that he was exactly where he was meant to be. It wasn't always easy. There were days when things felt overwhelming, like trying to fit puzzle pieces together without knowing what the final picture looked like. But every time doubt crept in, he reminded himself of why he started. For kids like Lily, who deserved a brighter future. The outreach programs began gaining momentum. The mentoring initiative had grown beyond expectations, pairing dozens of teens with caring mentors from within the company. These relationships weren't just about academics or career advice. They were about connection. Kids who once felt invisible now had someone cheering them on, telling them they mattered. Parents sent heartfelt letters thanking the program for giving their children hope and confidence. Employees shared stories of how working with these young people rekindled their own passion for making a difference. One evening, after wrapping up a particularly long day, the man sat at his desk staring at a stack of thank you notes from participants in the program. Each one told a unique story. A single mom grateful her son finally had a role model. A teenager excited about applying for college. A teacher amazed by the positive changes she'd seen in her students. Reading those words filled him with pride, but also humility. He knew none of this would have happened without the support of Michael and the team at Kingston Enterprises. But it wasn't just about the big wins. Sometimes the smallest moments left the deepest impressions. Like the time a shy 12-year-old boy showed up to a workshop too nervous to even introduce himself. By the end of the session, he was laughing alongside the other kids, proudly showing off a robot he'd built during the hands-on activity. Or the teenage girl who came to a career fair unsure of what she wanted to do with her life, but left inspired to pursue engineering after hearing from a female executive at the company. These moments kept him going, fueling his belief that change was possible, one person, one interaction at a time. Michael continued to check in regularly, not as a boss overseeing an employee, but as a friend genuinely invested in the success of the programs. During one of their meetings, he leaned back in his chair, a satisfied smile spreading across his face. "You know," Michael said thoughtfully, "when I first offered you this position, I hoped you'd bring something special to the table. But honestly, I don't think I fully grasped just how much of an impact you'd make, not just on the community, but on everyone here." The man chuckled nervously, scratching the back of his neck. "I'm just doing my part. None of this would have been possible without your support and the hard work of the entire team." "That's true," Michael agreed, nodding. "But having the right person leading the charge makes all the difference. You've shown us that kindness and empathy can drive real change. And honestly, I think it's made me a better leader too." The sincerity in Michael's voice caught him off guard. For so long he'd believed that people like him and people like Michael lived in separate worlds divided by titles and privilege. Yet here they were, sitting side by side, united by a shared vision of helping others. It was a reminder that no matter where someone came from, they could find common ground if they truly cared. Outside of work, the bond between the man, Michael, and Lily only grew stronger. They became more than acquaintances. They felt like family. On weekends, Michael often invited him over for casual dinners or outings to the park. Watching Lily laugh and play brought a warmth to his heart that he hadn't felt in years. She still referred to him as my hero, though he insisted he didn't deserve the title. "Heroes are people who wear capes," he joked one afternoon while pushing her on a swing. "I'm just a regular guy." Lily giggled, kicking her, legs higher. "But you saved me, that makes you a hero." He smiled softly, letting the moment sink in. Maybe she was right. Maybe being a hero wasn't about grand gestures or extraordinary feats. It was about showing up when it mattered most, about choosing to care, even when it seemed inconvenient or risky. One Saturday morning, Michael surprised him with tickets to a charity gala hosted by Kingston Enterprises. "You've done so much for the community," Michael explained. "It's time the world sees the incredible work you're doing." The thought of attending a formal event made him uneasy. He wasn't used to fancy suits, polished shoes, or rubbing elbows with high-profile guests. But Michael assured him there was nothing to worry about. "Just be yourself," he said. "That's what people love about you." On the night of the gala, the ballroom buzzed with energy. Chandeliers sparkled overhead, and tables were adorned with elegant centerpieces. As the man walked in, feeling slightly out of place, he was greeted warmly by familiar faces, employees, volunteers, and even some of the teens from the mentoring program. When it was time for speeches, Michael took the stage, his presence commanding yet approachable. After thanking donors and partners, he turned his attention to the man standing near the back of the room. "This next part is personal," Michael began, his voice steady but emotional. "A few months ago, a remarkable individual reminded me of the power of kindness. He didn't ask for recognition or reward. He simply saw someone in need and stepped up. Because of him, not only did a little girl find her way home, but our company found its true purpose. Tonight we honor him not just for what he's done, but for who he is." The crowd erupted into applause as Michael gestured for the man to join him on stage. Reluctantly, he made his way forward, his heart pounding. When he reached the microphone, he scanned the room, taking in the sea of smiling faces. I don't know what to say," he admitted, his voice trembling slightly. "All I ever wanted was to help others, the same way people helped me when I needed it most. If anything good has come from this, it's because of teamwork, because of all of you believing in this cause and making it happen." The room erupted into cheers again, louder this time. As he stepped away from the podium, Michael clapped him on the shoulder, grinning proudly. "You nailed it," he whispered. That night, as the gala wound down, the man stood outside under the stars, reflecting on everything that had transpired. From the moment he decided to help a lost little girl, his life had transformed in ways he never imagined. He had found purpose, friendship, and a chance to create lasting change. But most importantly, he had learned that kindness, no matter how small, could ripple outward, touching lives far beyond what he could see. And as he looked up at the sky, he couldn't help but feel grateful for the journey, for the people he'd met along the way, and for the reminder that sometimes the simplest acts of compassion could lead to the greatest rewards. As the months rolled by, the man found himself growing more confident in his role at Kingston Enterprises. The initial nerves of stepping into such a high-profile position had faded, replaced by a deep sense of purpose. Every day brought new challenges, but also new opportunities to make a difference. What started as a simple act of kindness, helping a lost little girl, had blossomed into something much bigger than he ever imagined. The outreach programs continued to expand, reaching communities that had long been overlooked. Workshops were held in neighborhoods where resources were scarce, giving kids access to technology, art supplies, and mentorship they wouldn't have otherwise had. Scholarships were created for students eager to pursue higher education, but lacking the means to do so. Even parents began attending sessions designed to help them navigate the complexities of raising children in tough circumstances. It was clear that the ripple effect of these efforts was spreading far and wide. One afternoon, while visiting a local community center where one of their workshops was taking place, the man noticed a young boy sitting quietly in the corner. He looked no older than 10, his clothes slightly worn, his eyes fixed on a drawing pad in front of him. Curious, the man approached him slowly, not wanting to startle him. "Hey there," he said gently, crouching down to the boy's level. "What are you working on?" The boy glanced up briefly before returning his attention to the paper. "It's a picture of my mom," he murmured, his voice barely audible. "She works really hard." The man nodded, leaning closer to get a better look. The drawing was simple yet full of emotion, a woman smiling warmly, surrounded by flowers. "That's beautiful," he said sincerely. "You're very talented." The boy shrugged, still hesitant to engage. Sensing his shyness, the man decided to share a bit of himself. "You know, when I was your age, I loved drawing too. Cats were my favorite," he added with a grin. "Still are, actually." For the first time, the boy cracked a small smile. "Cats are cool," he agreed softly. They spent the next few minutes chatting about drawings, favorite colors, and what kind of animals they liked best. By the end of their conversation, the boy seemed more relaxed, even excited to show off another sketch he'd been working on. Watching him light up reminded the man of Lily, the way she'd opened up to him during their search for her dad. It was moments like these that reinforced why he cared so deeply about this work. Every child deserved to feel seen, heard, and valued. Back at the office, the team celebrated milestones big and small. A group of teens from the mentoring program had recently graduated high school, many of them heading off to college or trade schools. One young woman in particular stood out. She had joined the program unsure of her future, struggling academically and emotionally. But with the support of her mentor, she discovered a passion for writing and was now pursuing a degree in journalism. At the graduation ceremony, she gave a speech thanking everyone involved, her voice trembling with gratitude. "I never thought I'd be standing here today," she admitted, tears streaming down her face. "But because of people who believed in me, I know anything is possible." Her words resonated deeply with the man. They weren't just changing lives, they were planting seeds of hope, confidence, and resilience in the next generation. And those seeds would grow, branching out into families, communities, and beyond. Meanwhile, Michael remained a steadfast ally, always encouraging the man to dream bigger and push further. One evening over coffee, Michael broached a topic that caught him completely off guard. "We've been talking internally about ways to take these programs nationwide," Michael explained, his tone thoughtful. "Imagine being able to replicate what we've done here in cities across the country. Think of how many more lives we could impact." The man blinked, stunned by the idea. Nationwide? That sounded ambitious, even daunting. But as he thought about it, he realized the potential was enormous. If they could scale their efforts, they could reach thousands, maybe even millions of kids and families in need. "I think it's possible," he said finally, his voice steady, despite the whirlwind of emotions inside him. "But it'll take a lot of planning, a lot of collaboration. Are you sure we're ready for something like this?" Michael smiled, his confidence unwavering. "We won't be doing it alone. We'll have an entire team behind us and you leading the charge. Besides, I've seen what you can accomplish when you set your mind to something. If anyone can pull this off, it's you." The weight of responsibility settled heavily on his shoulders, but it wasn't a burden. It was a challenge he was willing to embrace. For every child who needed a helping hand, for every family struggling to make ends meet, he knew the effort would be worth it. Weekends became a mix of rest and reflection, often spent with Michael, Lily, and their family. Their bond had grown stronger with each passing month, evolving into something akin to kinship. Lily still called him "my hero," though he insisted she stop. To her, however, the title fit perfectly. "You saved me," she said matter-of-factly, one afternoon while coloring at the kitchen table. "That makes you a superhero," he chuckled, shaking his head. "If I'm a superhero, then you're the brave one. You trusted me when you didn't have to. That takes courage." Her response was a cheeky grin as she handed him a crayon. "Here, draw a cat with me." Together, they filled the page with colorful sketches, laughter filling the room. In those quiet moments, surrounded by love and joy, the man felt a profound sense of fulfillment. This wasn't just about career success or recognition, it was about connection, about building relationships that transcended backgrounds, titles, or expectations. Late one night, as he sat on his balcony staring at the city skyline, he reflected on how far he'd come. From a chance encounter with a frightened little girl, to spearheading nationwide initiatives aimed at empowering underserved communities, his journey had been nothing short of extraordinary. But what struck him most wasn't the accolades or achievements. It was the reminder that compassion, no matter how small, could spark monumental change. He thought about all the people he'd met along the way: Lily, Michael, the teens in the Yawai mentoring program, the volunteers, and countless others whose lives had intertwined with his own. Each of them had played a role in shaping this chapter of his life. And as he looked toward the future, he knew one thing for certain: the best was yet to come. Because kindness, once set in motion, had a way of creating endless possibilities.